What is going on, guys? We are back playing some more Surviving with Create. And today, guys, we're going to be setting up the Windmill, which is actually very unique compared to most of the windmills that are offered in modded Minecraft. You're probably familiar with the Immersive Engineering Windmill, maybe the Mechanism Wind Turbine, or even the Industrial Craft Windmill, which are all very simple single block structures that, while you may be able to have an improved version of them, are pretty static in their design, and eventually they will cap out their power generation at something pretty mediocre. Whereas with the windmill we're going to be setting up today, it is completely customizable in both how it looks and its power generation, and can really be made to be something extremely powerful for even late game power generation in Create. Now, I absolutely love this idea. It's super cool because everyone has their own build styles, and so being able to customize how this actually looks when you're setting it up and make it look appropriate for whatever base you're attaching it to is absolutely awesome, because I know it's always been a huge turnoff from setting up certain windmills in a lot of my bases just because it doesn't look nice. Now, on top of that, it's also really cheap to set up. You need 2 different building blocks from Create to actually generate the rotational power, but everything on top of that is just going to be vanilla Minecraft blocks of your choosing to actually design the windmill. So, if we look in this chest right here, you can see there's really not that much in here. So to make the setup, we are going to need 1 radial chassis. You know, we've worked with linear chassis before, but if you don't know, this is going to be a block where we are going to attach slime to each side of it. You can attach it to all 4 sides of this one, and then you're going to build blocks off of that, and it's going to rotate the radial chassis, and when that 1 block moves, it's going to hold on to all the blocks that you've attached to the side of it, thus allowing us to create and design our entire windmill around this 1 block, and this is the one that is going to rotate for us. Now that it's rotating, we're going to have 1 other block, which is the mechanical bearing, which you can see right here. It's also extremely cheap, and this is what's going to allow us to actually generate the rotational power from the rotating radial chassis. So these 2 blocks together are basically the entire mechanical component of the windmill. On top of that, like I said, it's just going to be vanilla blocks. Now, something to keep in mind is the vanilla block that is going to determine how much power you are going to generate from this setup is going to be what they deem as sail blocks in Create, and that's essentially just saying however many wool blocks you put on it. Wool blocks are the sail blocks, so those are the ones that are going to count towards it spinning faster and generating more rotational power. So just something to keep in mind, you can design it using various blocks. We're going to be using oak logs today to make it look nice, but the only block that is integral to actually generating the power is the wool block. And something I will say that's going to make me cringe a little bit if any of you guys do it, but knowing that a lot of you are all about efficiency, is that you can get it up to its maximum rotational power generation by just putting a square of wool blocks on it until you reach that amount. I think it's maybe 5 or 6 in each direction off of the radial chassis is going to reach the maximum generation, which is going to be 16 RPMs and 8,192 stress units on it, which is a crazy amount. It's absolutely phenomenal, but I'm just saying that now because those of you that are curious how you can maximize this, that is how it's just going to look horrific. So I would advise against doing that, but if you're all about efficiency, you have that option. So in here you can see we've got all the different things to make those 2 mechanical blocks, a couple things to transfer the rotational power. We're not actually going to use it today. And then we are going to have some white wool and some oak logs, like I said. And those are the blocks we're going to be using to actually design it because it's going to match our base very nicely. So we can come over here and start crafting. The mechanical bearing itself is going to require us to craft a turntable, which is a shaft and a slab of some sort. So we can make that, and then we can simply craft this using 2 andesite alloy and andesite casing, a shaft, and a turntable. So there we go. We have the mechanical bearing, and the last thing we need is the radial chassis. Now, from this, it's even easier to craft, it's even cheaper, and it's actually going to give you 3. So it's just going to take 3 pieces of certain type of wood, whichever one you have, and then 2 andesite alloy. So there we go, we now have the radial chassis. Then you're going to need 1 slime ball because it's not going to be consumed when we make the different sides of the radial chassis sticky, which is great because it's significantly easier to get 1 than it's going to be to get 1 for every side of every chassis you need early on. Then we're going to have, like I said, the wool and then any other blocks you want to build on it with, and a lever, because you need a lever to actually make the mechanical bearing go. Now we're going to be setting this up outside, so I'm going to sleep really quick before we head out there, but I did make a little addition to the base so that we can actually build a windmill, and I believe after that, we're going to be using it to power a nice elevator that will bring us down to a mine, where we will then after that do some automated mining stuff. So I'm excited for that, but that's the progression of things, and that is why we have this setup out here, where we're going to put the windmill on this side, and then we're going to eventually make the elevator right here using the rotational power we generate from the windmill. So we're going to build it up high. I believe we are going to use 4 long for the fans for the windmill. So I do have some dirt to build up here, and then we're going to start working. So let's go up like this, because we're going to be putting it in the center. And I believe we're going to put it right. We can try, I feel like it's between right here and right here. I don't actually know which one I want. Let's see if it's right here, and then we go 1, 2, 3, 4. That's going to be a little bit close to the ground. So let's do right here. This is where we're going to put it. And so we want to make sure that we've got space. So what we basically should do is we can put a shaft right here. And let's see if it actually orients itself properly. It absolutely does not. That's unfortunate. Well, we can always change that from the inside. We can start by placing down some dirt right here. And then we're going to place down the mechanical bearing right here. And we can put the lever wherever we want. Obviously, we're pretty much always going to have this turned on, so it's not really a huge concern, but we'll put that on the bottom, and then we are going to put down the radial chassis. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because we need to make sure it comes out far enough so we can actually have the windmill there. So if this was pushed back one, then we would not be able to have this overhang of the oak stairs, which I actually think looks nice because it adds a little bit of depth to the build. I think it looks very odd without it. So we will put the radial chassis down here, and you can see the different sides that we can put the slime ball on and make them sticky are obviously these 4 sides here, and then we have 2 that we can't see right now. So we're going to go around with the slime ball, and we're just going to right click on each side, and you can see obviously, like I said, that it does not consume it. Thankfully, it definitely makes it a lot easier to work with, and then we just need to build up to the top and get this. So here we go. Now all the sides are sticky, meaning that the blocks that we attach here are going to be held onto this as this rotates. And so something I want to check really quick is just the direction it's rotating. And the reason I want to check that is because I want to make sure that when we build this, it actually looks appropriate with how we orient the different sides of the windmill. So by attaching 4 pieces of wool to this, you actually don't even need 4, you could just do 1, but I'm attaching 4. And if we flip this, it's going to start spinning. So it's very, very slow. This would not be an effective way really to generate any rotational power, but by flipping this, you can see that it works, and you can also see that it is rotating clockwise, which is what we want. So, well, it's not necessarily what we want. There's nothing wrong with it going counterclockwise, but oh my gosh. Okay, I need to be able to click this lever here. Is there a reason it doesn't want me to click that? So we're going to break these off, and now we are going to build the actual, I don't know actually what they're specifically called, because I've never really looked into it, but I'm just going to call them like the I don't even know, the different fans, the wings, I don't know, whatever you want to call the individual like spokes almost on a windmill. I don't know what they're called. Maybe someone with more knowledge, maybe an Amish person would know better than me. Honestly, I have no idea. But we're going to build these out here, and we're going to go out 4, like I said, which will give us decent power generation based on how we set it up. But like I said before, the only thing that matters is going to be how many blocks of wool you have on your setup, right? Because those are the ones that are going to actually count towards increasing the speed. Those are the sail blocks. Those are what are, quote, catching the wind and allowing it to turn faster. And while it doesn't always make sense with how you set it up, because like I said, you could just make it a big square made of wool, which would never work in real life. It does work in here. So like I said, not always making sense, but that is how you are going to increase the power generation. Now we're going to build out a little bit here because we got to get on the bottom and the top to finish setting this up. And I guess we can come down over here and finish setting this part up. So we'll get these 4, and then we can come back up and we'll get the top up here, and then we will attach the remaining sail blocks to it. So there we go. We have all these. Now it's going to turn clockwise, which means we want to, if we want this to be appropriate, we want to put the wool on the back side of these, so not the direction they're turning in. So I'm going to be putting, I believe, 6 wool blocks on each one, like that. It's just really a matter of how you want it to look. So whatever you think looks appropriate for, you know, for a windmill, you know, I think this looks good. Obviously, I'd prefer to make it a little bit bigger because I would prefer to have it not be right in the middle, this extended portion right here. If it was 5, I would have 1, 2, and then I would have these 2 popping out and one on top of that. But this building is not big enough, and I did not think making a larger tower here would be appropriate for the size of the actual base that we currently have. So unfortunately, we're sticking with this, but I think it'll look nice and it'll get us sufficient power for what we want it to do. So we have that, then this one right here. And then lastly, we're going to build off of this side right here, and we got to come over a little bit and do that. And now actually we're done. So this is our windmill that's set up right here. We can come down and clear out. We're going to have to get up there and flip the lever as the last step. But if we stand back and look, we can see that this is our windmill and it's going to spin clockwise. I know it's nothing super fancy, but it's going to generate us a nice amount of rotational power. And really the important part of this, and the thing the windmill is amazing at early on, is getting you a very high stress capacity. And the reason that that is so important is because while a lot of times single machines want a very high speed, things that you want to process really fast or go really quickly, the important part when you're working on a lot of builds that include multiple machines, it's going to be the stress capacity, because you'll a lot of times see people slowing things down to increase the stress capacity using things like cogwheels and whatnot so that it can hold more machines. And very similar, if you saw, to what happened in the last episode of Create, where we were setting up the infinite gold production, by attaching a bunch of those machines to the same power generation source, we had to actually slow it down a little bit because we were reaching the stress capacity of that specific thing. And that was for very, very simple setups. So if you want complicated ones that involve a lot of different moving parts, you're going to need a significant stress capacity, especially if you want them going really fast. And so the windmill is phenomenal at doing that. So what we're going to do is come back here and we can pretty much hop up and just flick the lever. And there we go. You can see it's spinning significantly faster than when we just put the 4 individual wool blocks down on each side. I think it looks phenomenal. It's really, really cool, in my opinion, that you can completely customize how you want this to look, and you can find the nice balance between aesthetics and the actual, you know, efficiency of this setup. So I love it, honestly. Now, if we come inside here, we can go up and just put down a shaft right up here on the back of this, and that is where we are going to pull out the rotational power. So we have a shaft right there, and then if we wanted to bring it down, we could throw a simple gearbox and easily carry it down, which I suspect is what we're going to be doing when we set up the elevator in here next time, to eventually bring us down so that we have somewhere like a mine to actually set up our automated mining. So don't worry, guys, I'm thinking a couple steps ahead so that we have a lot to do in the coming episodes. But I definitely think this is a useful thing to set up very early on. It's really, really cheap and easy to do. It looks awesome, and it's extremely useful. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode and found it useful. If you have any cool ideas on, you know, setting up your own windmills, or you have any suggestions on how to improve the visual, you know, aspect of my windmill, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'm always open to suggestions because I'm pretty happy with how the base is turning out so far, and I would always love to keep improving on it. But other than that, guys, I hope you're having a great day, and I'll talk to you guys later.
Standing in a glass bowl at the end of a black hole, cold, lost and upside down. Faces swirling past me, all my memories rolling vastly.